Right. We will begin in about a minute. I call this meeting of the Vista Unified School District to order at 6:55. Please stand for the flag salute. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. Roll call, Trustee Smithfield. Trustee Vargas. Trustee Morocco.
Here.
Trustee Kelly.
Here.
Student trustee Megan Tapp. Student trustee Brandon Burton.
Here.
And the other two trustees are absent this evening. In closed session, there was by unanimous vote 5-0. The board took action to issue notice to release and reassign the following employees from their position pursuant to Ed Code Section 44951, effective at the end of 2023-2024 school year, and directed the superintendent or designee to send out appropriate legal notices. And do I read out the IDs?
Yes.
Employee ID number 24-2-15-01 and 24-2-15-02. All right. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. And I am going to ask if my fellow trustees would be willing to waive number 9 in the interest of time, board member report out. So moved by trustee Vargas and seconded by trustee Kelly. Any further discussion? Yes?
I'm wondering, in the interest of time, if we would be able to move the action items to the front of the agenda so that we can get those out of the way.
Well, we have the golden apples first.
Okay, but after the golden apples, can we move anything that we have to vote on?
There's one presentation, the micro workshop we normally do that gives you the necessary background in order to vote on some of the action items. So if you do move the action items forward, I would recommend that we do at least minimally the micro workshop presentation prior to that.
Okay, that's an acceptable alternative for me. If anybody else is okay with that, I move that we do that. Oh, no, there's a motion on the floor. So
There is a motion on the floor.
I move to amend the motion on the floor for the following changes as Dr. Doyle outlined, where we put the micro micro presentation first, and then the action items next, and then any other presentations. Move those to the end of the meeting.
Trustee Smithfield?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
There's no second, then the motion dies, so nobody's seconding it. My amendment will die if nobody seconds it. Right, no, your motion's on the floor. I made a motion to amend it, and if it doesn't get a second, then it dies, so we don't.
All in favor of approving the agenda as stated by trustee Vargas, waiving number 9, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, the motion carries 4-1. All right, so next we have the fun part, the Golden Apple Awards presentation. Thank you for being patient.
All right, good evening, everyone, board members, student board members. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We did choose a larger venue so it could fit everyone, and this is a wonderful opportunity for us to recognize amazing staff members, teachers, and support staff from around the district. This is our annual Golden Apple Winner Award for 2024. As you all know, we've been working together on our framework for the future, in particular our portraits. I do want to read out one portrait that addresses the adults in our organization so we can So it serves as a backdrop for the celebrations we have in front of us tonight. Motivating, inspiring are the adults within our organization. All adults are champions for students and colleagues, motivating, encouraging others to be their best selves and supporting their passions and aspirations. We coach and mentor students and adults through the intentional development of resilience, confidence, and individual identity. The reason we're here tonight is to celebrate the amazing accomplishments of just a few representative samples of our amazing teachers and staff members. And Rachel is going to introduce the process, and each of the board members has a particular individual adult within our organization that we would like to celebrate. Rachel? Why don't you grab my, whichever one you like.
I like Rena's. So each year, Vista Unified School District honors classified and certificated employees and administrators for their dedication and hard work to the students of Vista Unified. An opportunity for nominations are provided to all employees, including classified, certificated, and administrators, to nominate their peers for a Golden Apple Award. These winners are selected each year and honored at the February board meeting. This has been a tradition with Vista Unified School District since 1983 and continues to this day. Our Golden Apple Award winners will have an opportunity to take a picture that will be placed outside of the district office boardroom. Once all of our awardees have received their awards, they will exit to the foyer to my left. It like went small. To my left to take their photo, and the Board of Trustees will then take a short break so that they can take a group picture with all of our winners. So if Golden Apple winners can please wait a few minutes after they are finished with the photographer, we will organize that group picture. Now for our Golden Apple winners for 2024.
And we're going to start with Miss Morocco, Trustee Morocco.
Oh, okay.
You are
no
first
wonder-
on the list.
Do I go up there or do I just
You can
stand?
read it from back there because we're
Okay.
going to take a picture with them
right.
after.
Okay. All right. I'll stand up. See. What high school teachers' achievements have been showcased worldwide from Australia to Europe? Whose awards, accolades, and excellence continues to grow after 20 years in his teaching position? This remarkable teacher's passion for music and dedication to his students have made him an invaluable asset to our community. He values each learner's strengths and believes in their potential and is invested in success. His warm smile and gentle approach have made him a beloved figure among adult and student musicians. Under his guidance, RBV's band and color guard have risen to new heights. His leadership His leadership allows students to showcase talents and compete in riveting field shows. Under this amazing teacher's leadership, the RBB band has achieved remarkable success, earning invitations to perform at prestigious conferences, including the California Band Directors Association, CBDA, convention, and many others. In addition to the band's success, his commitment to his students has helped produce some of the region's most accomplished music students. We believe his legacy will continue to inspire student musicians for years to come. Congratulations to our first Golden Apple winner of the night, our Golden Apple winner for high school teacher from Rancho Buena Vista High School, Eric Wyrather.
Yeah, a family of Mr. Wyrather, please join them outside for pictures if there are a family. And then, of course, we're hoping to go check them out too. Staff members, supporters of Mr. Wyrather, congratulations. I have the distinct honor to introduce the next winner. So, and it's a true pleasure for me. And just give me one moment. I'm juggling two things because she was not able to make it tonight, but we did have a wonderful presentation for her about a week ago. So give me a moment to share. I think I can make this work. And I think you may need to Yeah, you made you do that. Okay, give me a chance to read it. So the winner of the Middle School Teacher Golden Apple Award is a founding member of the Madison Middle School. Throughout her years of service, she has touched the lives of thousands of colleagues, students, and families. She brings a warmth and a smile to work every day. She puts her heart into her teaching and creates a safe and caring environment where kids can be themselves and participate in learning experiences that encourage their growth. She values each learner's strengths and values their potential. This incredible teacher helped create and build Madison Broadcasting Company, a CTE program that has become a staple for the Madison community. Students participating in this program learn to be themselves, flex their creative muscles, design, write, act, produce, and other exciting skills that will promote their creativity and their life experiences. Being in her class allows everyone to feel a part of an extended family. We are here to celebrate and congratulate our middle school teacher, Golden Apple winner at Madison Middle School, Gabrielle Calvin. Congratulations. And we already had a chance to talk with her and hand her the award. So our next winner will be introduced by our board president, Ms. Alvarado.
For Elementary Golden Apple, esta increíble maestra está ofreciendo un programa educativo auténtico para sus alumnos de segundo grado. Su destacada ética laboral y amor para la enseñanza son evidentes en cada lección que sus estudiantes experimentan a diario. This incredible teacher is providing an authentic educational program for her second graders. Her outstanding work ethic and love for teaching is evident in every lesson her students experience daily. Our honoree creates materials that support her students and often shares ideas, suggestions, and creations with others, collaborating with her team to help support all students. She is eager to share lessons, knowledge, and support with colleagues and parents. She is globally minded and equity-centered as she inspires and contributes support to the success of the dual language program and school community. She is a compassionate champion in the classroom, fostering a student-centered environment. She is an innovative facilitator using technology to help target lessons and create additional materials when needed. Students in her class are engaged in lessons using manipulatives, realia, participating in phonics lessons, and conducting science experiments. She uses a calming corner to students needing social emotional breaks or support. A genuine love for teaching is evident in her class. Join me in congratulating our Golden Apple recipient for elementary teacher from Grapevine Elementary, Imelda Hasso. Yay, bravo! Bravo, Imelda. Bravo.
Okay, our next recipient will be presented by our Vice President, Ms. Kelly.
Thank you, Dr. Doyle. The Golden Apple for Classified Employee goes to an employee who epitomizes Vista Unified's values and adult portrait. He comes to work each day with joy and passion to provide the best campus for students and staff at Major General Murray High School. Oftentimes, plans change without much notice. This plant lead takes a challenge and makes it a positive interaction for all. He is an adaptable, collaborative, critical thinker. This employee is hands-on and eager to step forward to make things happen so that others can avoid confusion. This past summer for new teacher orientation, he worked magic to pull off a last-minute 2-day onboarding workshop at his site. He was pleasant and created an environment for new teachers and VUSD staff where they felt cared for and valued. He opened each morning with a sign welcoming staff and new hires. He is available for students and staff at his site with well-stocked and clean rooms. His care and dedication to the district is visible when visiting the MGM campus. This classified employee is committed, consistent, and reliable. It is our pleasure to celebrate and present our classified employee Golden Apple to Major General Murray's plant lead, Mr. Luis Lopez.
Thank you, Luis. Congratulations, Luis. To honor our next award recipient, we have our trustee, Cipriano Vargas.
All right. The Golden Apple Award in the Certified Administrator category goes to an assistant principal who is an extraordinary leader in the Vista Unified School District. She has always stepped up to do whatever was necessary in supporting staff and students. She has served as a resource teacher, a literacy coordinator, and currently serves as an elementary assistant principal. And as a resource teacher, she has collaboratively mentored and coached a ton of staff. Her commitment to our district and students was demonstrated this year as she enthusiastically moved from Breeze Hill Elementary as an assistant principal to Beaumont to support the new principal, staff, and students. She exemplifies our adult portrait as a compassionate champion. She supports all students, family members, and coworkers from a strengths-based perspective, and she is motivating, inspiring, kind, compassionate, and an empathetic champion to all. The Vista Unified School District is honored to present the Golden Apple Award to Leticia Semino, principal of Beaumont Elementary.
Right. Congratulations, Letty. Rachel, the pen. Excellent. Congratulations, Letty. Take that with you. All right. Our final awardee of the night will be presented by Trustee Smithfield.
Best to last. And I have the Golden Apple for classified management. Chances are, on any given day, you will not find our Golden Apple classified management recipient in his office. You know it's a he now, right? He is out responding to and supporting operational needs throughout the district. Within his department, he is leading change through a collaborative process with his team utilizing the district's values. His efforts and decisions are focused on being of service to students and school sites. This leader considers future-focused environments and creates clear operational expectations that are practical. He has implemented a change in the maintenance department that will lead the district to ensure equitable access to learning for all students, staff, and the community, and that is so true. This leader leads others by modeling the ideals of the Vista Unified School District adult portrait. He is a compassionate companion of change. He supports innovative thinking and processes that have put into place new service desk systems and improved workplace conditions. He has implemented shop visits, which is leading to improved cross-department collaboration. The Vista School Board is honored to present the Golden Apple to Kevin Kirby, Maintenance Manager. Congratulations.
We are going to take a quick recess to take photos with the Golden Apple recipients. Students who were here at 6 o'clock, please see one of our assistant superintendents or someone to get your paperwork signed. Thank you. All righty. Think we're waiting for our student board member. We will go ahead. All righty. We are back from recess. The next item on the agenda is item 6, the public hearing. 6A, convey an easement to the city of Vista for utility purposes. We will now convene a public hearing on resolution 24-14, conveying an easement to the city of Vista for utility purposes at the Vista Magnet Middle School for public comment. We have received cards or statements from no one? No, we don't have anybody. From 0 folks, from 0 people who wish to address this subject. Each person will be given up to the 3 minutes, but there is no one here to speak to that. All righty. Thank you all for your comments. No, there are no comments. Thank you all for your patience. The public hearing for resolution 24-14, convey an easement to the city of Vista for utility purposes at the Vista Magnet Middle for public comment is now closed. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is item 7, presentation by the community members, public comments and community members. Any member of the audience who wishes to hold and speak to an agenda item or at an appropriate time speak to an item not on the agenda should complete a hold card and present it to the board secretary before item 2A or before the meeting begins. In an effort to gain as much public input as possible, individual speakers will be limited to 3 minutes or less. A total of 20 minutes will be held for public comments under item 7A. The remainder of public comments will be continued after completion of the discussion action items if necessary. We have 3 hold cards, so each speaker will get 3 minutes. We have Dexter Freeman, followed by Mario Bojorquez, followed by Bob Birkenshop, if I said that right. If not, let me know. Dexter Freeman. Someone give him a microphone.
I am here on behalf of the Public Policy Club at Rancho Buena Vista High School, and our mission is to prevent underage substance abuse in our community. On Monday, March 11th, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m., we will be hosting a substance abuse prevention forum in the RBV's gymnasium located at 1601 Longhorn Drive in Vista. That's 1601 Longhorn Drive in Vista. The parents of the victim of an underage drunk driver will be there to share their tragic story of how underage drinking affected their family. Their son, baby Isaiah, was a young boy who was struck in a stroller by a teenage drunk driver, and now he is paralyzed and faces many problems that make his life a constant struggle. The family will be there to help prevent underage drinking and bring a powerful message to our community. Members of our club will co-facilitate the forum and help attendees, including parents and students, learn that most teens don't use alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, or other drugs. According to the 2019 California Healthy Kids Survey for Vista Unified, fewer than 1 in 5 high school juniors reported any substance use in the past month. However, this was the first time that marijuana use and vaping were higher than alcohol use and had increased since 2017. As we head into the spring and summer season, the forum will serve as an important reminder to the dangers of substance abuse and urge parents and young adults to make healthy choices. The Public Policy Club would like to formally invite you to attend our forum, and we feel that this forum will provide a great deal of information on the effects of underage drinking and drug use. Our club is looking to fill all the seats in order to spread our message to as many people as possible. We believe that your attendance will be of utmost importance to show our community that we are doing all we can to help combat the problem of underage drinking and drug use. I have a couple of flyers here to hand out to you all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dexter. Next on the agenda is Mario Bojorquez.
CSEA, please rise. Awesome. Trustees, over a year ago, I spoke to most of these board members about better pay and benefits by highlighting pay disparity using a very interesting prop. Many classified employees expected me to use this hat or another prop tonight, but I've decided this evening requires me to be far more blunt. This board has failed to follow its own core values by offering a benefits package that insults the dignity and hard work we bring to the students of USD every day. As lead negotiator for CSEA, I continue to be presented with the exact same offer we have today, despite my team's fair counterproposals. That's not negotiating, it's an ultimatum. We struggle with rising costs of living and increasing medical expenses. If our pay continues to decline, you can expect further retirements and further job vacancies. This isn't what we want, but we can no longer blind ourselves to the economic realities of a post-COVID world. Tonight, I'm asking you to think about the many classified employees who live on the edge of poverty. Think of the students you were elected to support, and remember that you lead by example. Set an example that classified employees deserve an income to support themselves and their families.
Thank you, Mr. Bojorquez. Next is Bob Baron Scott.
Hi, y'all. I'm here about the same subject, about our pay. My name is Bob Barron Scott. Basically, we come here every year to discuss this, and we accept a pay decrease every year. Cost of living increases, loss of medical, we've lost approximately 30% of our pay in the last 7 years alone, if you actually look into it. With what's coming across the borders and all, we're gonna have an increase in more expenses. So we'll have a larger inflation most likely during the next couple of years, covering emergency costs, housing, medical, phones, iPhones, and more kids in the classes from out of the country. Anything that is accepted here between that 3% and 6%, I'm hearing rumors about, is really pretty bad. But if you put in cost of living, even if it's following year, I'd be happy for you guys, because cost of living is what has made y'all lose that 30% buying power. All I got to say is you can't beat the board in the negotiations by the way you've been doing it. They run out of money. They, even though if they do get 3 to 4 times COLA, they're not giving us 1 times COLA, cost of living. So please, when you vote, when you talk to your representative union person, push COLA over everything, or else in the next 5 years, you will be homeless if you don't own a home already. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda is item 8, reports from school-related organizations. You will have 3 to 5 minutes. First up is Vista Teachers Association, followed by California School Employees Association.
Has to be balanced just right. Okay. Good evening, Board of Education, student board members, Superintendent Dr. Doyle, Cabinet, and community. I stand before you today with a shared commitment to the pursuit of excellence in education. Our primary goal is to foster an environment that enables both students and educators to thrive. It is within this spirit of collaboration and mutual respect that I address you today to finalize negotiations and reach a fair contract that reflects the value we place on the incredible work done by our educators. Firstly, let me express my gratitude for the tireless efforts put forth by our educators and staff. Their dedication to shaping the minds of our future generations is truly commendable. It is imperative that we acknowledge and reward their commitment with a contract that not only recognizes their hard work, but also addresses their legitimate concerns. Negotiations can be challenging, with both sides striving to balance fiscal responsibility with the need to provide a competitive and fair compensation package. We are mindful of the financial constraints that the Board of Education faces, and we appreciate the efforts made to allocate resources effectively. However, It is crucial to remember that investing in our educators is an investment in the future of our community. A fair contract is not only a matter of just compensation, but also a reflection of the value we place on education as a cornerstone of our society. It is an investment in a well-being of our students, the success of our schools, and the overall prosperity of our community. Good schools brings families in. Our educators, the backbone of our educational system, are grappling with financial hardships that extend far beyond the classroom. It pains me to share that some of our teachers are facing homelessness, resorting to selling plasma, and are unable to put food on the table at the end of the month. This is not merely an isolated issue. It is a reflection of a broader problem that demands your attention and action. Teaching is a noble profession that requires immense dedication and passion. Our educators play a pivotal role in shaping the future of our community by nurturing the minds of our students. It's disheartening to think that those who contribute so significantly to our society are themselves facing such severe economic challenges. The burden our teachers are carrying is affecting not only their professional lives, but their ability to provide a stable and nurturing environment for their students. A teacher who is worried where they will sleep tonight or how they will afford their next meal cannot be expected to perform their best in the classroom. I urge the Board of Education to consider the human element in negotiations. Our educators deserve more than just a fair contract. They deserve a contract that acknowledges their dedication and ensures that they can lead dignified lives outside the classroom. Compensation is not just about numbers on paper. It is about recognizing the value of the work our teachers do and providing them with means to live without constant financial strain. As we engage in these negotiations, let us keep in mind the faces behind the statistics, the educators who are sacrificing so much for the betterment of our community. It is your responsibility to create an environment that fosters the success of both educators and students alike. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Avila. Next is California School Employees Association, followed by the District English Learner Advisory Committee, DLAC.
Good evening, board members, superintendent, cabinet members, student board members, community partners. I am Marcela Ramos, and I proudly stand in front of you representing my CSEA brothers, sisters, and siblings of Vista Unified Chapter 389. Last month in our CSEA report, we shared that the district had saved over $6 million in the last 3 years on classified salaries. And we reiterated that that money was intended and budgeted to be spent on classified staff to support students. Since our report, CSEA has been reminded that the district has had to use funds to pay for contracted services like hiring instructional assistants. We understand that the district is understaffed, especially with instructional assistants. We see this as a symptom of a bigger issue, retention. If current classified employees cannot sustain a living wage, they are forced to leave the profession to seek a higher wage elsewhere, which leaves the district with an even bigger gap of vacant positions. You retain employees by paying them a living wage now. Classified employees cannot support our students if we cannot support ourselves. Again, all we are asking is for the district to put the money back where it was intended to be utilized, in classified salaries. In the same way that the district was creative in redesignating those funds elsewhere, the district can also be creative, think outside the box, in reallocating funds to support classified salaries. Lastly, All these classified employees present tonight that you see standing in front of you love what they do. And they are passionate to provide the best service to students and their families. We love what we do. Thank you.
Next is 8C, the District English Learner Advisory Committee, DLAC.
Good evening, Board. On behalf of the District English Learner Advisory Committee, I would like to give you a report tonight. DLAC conducted an official meeting on Monday, January 22nd. 2 tasks were completed. Task number 1, development of a district master plan for education programs and services for English language learners. The district master plan will take into consideration the school site master plans. Task number 3, establishment of a district program, goals and objectives for programs and services for English learners. Quorum was met, and based on these tasks, DLAC would like to respectfully recommend that more information be given to DLAC about the training that teachers receive, and ensure that the continuation and implementation of teacher training takes place. The next official meeting, DLAC meeting, will be held on Monday, February 26th at 6 p.m. at the VIC. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is item 10, staff committee reports to the board. Starting with 10A, student board member report from Mission Vista High School, student board trustee Megan Taft. Welcome. You got it. All right.
All right. Good evening, board members, Dr. Doyle, cabinet. I am thrilled to be here to introduce the Mission Vista High School student board representative for this year, Megan Taft. She is an extraordinary leader. She's enjoyed her time so far serving in this role. And at Mission Vista, she's our ASB president. She's a leader who leads by example, leads with integrity, and leads with a servant's heart. So I can't think of anybody better to share a little bit about the state of Mission Vista High School. So I present to you Megan Taft.
Good evening, board members, student board member, and audience members. My name is Megan Taft, and I am representing Mission Vista High School. I am very excited to be able to share my report with you tonight for you to hear all the wonderful and exciting things that go on around Mission Vista. I am very pleased to say that the students at Mission Vista have excelled over this past year, while we have over 700 students who have earned a 4.0 GPA in the fall term of 2023. Our counseling team has been very hard at work making sure all of our students are career or college ready by the time they graduate high school. They have been able to achieve this by encouraging students to take an additional math class as well as an additional science class. These new recommendations have allowed us to have an A through G completion rate of 75%, which ensures the success of our students. Our wonderful CTE pathways have also become much more popular over the past year, and our classrooms have been filled to the brim with eager students ready to learn. Over the past year, our wonderful performing arts departments have put on a variety of different performances. As always, Rock the Hill, which is put on by our steel drum ensemble, was a smashing success and is always an event our students look forward to attending. Speaking of steel drum, our steel drum ensemble has had many outstanding performances this year and has had the opportunity to perform at events with a national audience, such as NAMM this past month. Our incredible MVHS choir produced their Cat's Pajamas concert, Fall Fantastique concert, the Comfort and Joy concert this past year, and they have also had the pleasure of performing at events with national audiences. Our talented musical theater has put on their wonderful play, The Iliad, the Odyssey, and all of Greek mythology in 99 minutes or less, and they are currently preparing for their upcoming spring musical, which is the SpongeBob musical. Dance has been hard at work choreographing Dancing with the Timberwolves and their spring showcase. I am uh, truly excited to see what our hardworking and talented students will show us. Last but not least, our ballet folklorico has had the honor of performing at different events across the district and are now preparing for a showcase in March where we can see just how hard they have been working. To say we are proud of our performing arts is an understatement. I am also very proud to say that our athletics department has been growing like no other. In the fall and winter season, we have had more than 150 new athletes participating in school sports. I applaud each and every student athlete at Mission Vista as having to juggle sports and school, especially at such a fast-paced school, is something they should be very proud of. As our athletics are expanding, we are hoping to bring home a league championship or two before the end of the year, and I have no doubt that we can accomplish that. In addition to more student athletes, we have now welcomed 2 new varsity sports for the 2023-24 year, girls lacrosse as well as wrestling, and we are so excited to be able to provide more opportunities for our students. Our culture at Mission Vista continues to grow as we host spectacular events put on by our wonderful ASB. We have hosted our annual Winter Formal, which had the best turnout we have gotten in many years, our Fall Festival, movie nights, student versus staff games, pep rallies, spirit weeks, and so much more. As the ASB president, I am very proud to say that I took on the daunting task of our annual Valentine's Day Hearts, and yesterday our ASB class successfully put up 1,700 hearts early in the morning with every student and staff member's name on it. This takes months of preparation, but is worth it every single year, and I'm so happy to be able to take part in this tradition. Our junior class is in the midst of planning prom, and I can't wait to see all the progress and plans that have been made so far. I know this prom will be a great one. Our underclassmen in ASB have also taken on the task of planning our spring dance, and I am very excited to see what they come up with this year. As a senior class member in ASB, I am looking forward to planning and attending the numerous senior events we have coming up, such as senior breakfast and senior picnic. Along with ASB, our wonderful Link Crew leaders have done an amazing job this year by spreading positivity and spirit among the campus. We also have over 65 active clubs on campus, which continues to help our school culture rise. As the end of the year is nearing, I would like to say how great my experience has been not only at Mission Vista, but in the Vista Unified School District. Throughout my 13 years of schooling, I have attended all of the USD schools and have had such an amazing experience at each one. I am proud to have attended Alamosa Park Elementary School, Vista Magnet Middle School, and now Mission Vista High School. Although being a senior is very bittersweet, I am ecstatic not only for our upcoming senior events and for graduation, but I am excited beyond that because I know my wonderful teachers in this district have prepared me well for the years to come. I would also like to thank you for the opportunity to serve as a student board member and have thoroughly enjoyed my experience here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Student Trustee Taft. All right. Next on the agenda is item 10B, the 2023-24 Mid-Year Local Control Accountability Plan, LCAP, Information Report.
Good evening, board members. This is a new requirement this year that we do a mid-year LCAP update for you. So this is a requirement from the state. And so this is the time of year that we do this. So you'll see here on the first slide that it's Senate Bill 114 in 2023 added this new requirement that we report out our mid-year outcome data on both our growth and progress of our implementation, as well as our funding and where we're at with our budget. And so when the budget was first adopted, you'll see the $2 figures there, $253,722,573. And then per the Budget Act, it went up a little bit because the state added what's called an equity multiplier to that formula this year. And then you'll see the amount of money we get for supplemental and concentration grants. And so that's the extended money we get based on our student population here to help bridge programs and services for our most needy students. The next slide is that you'll see that we look at our metrics and then we determine if it's known at this time, if it's in progress, or if the outcome is unknown. We have to remember that when we're looking at this, that we can go to the next slide. We're looking back and forward at the same time. So you'll see as I go through this presentation, you'll see some that are known, but it's last year's data. And we're just reporting now based on when the state dashboard gets released and those kind of things. So we're actually looking at old data when we're doing this presentation in a lot of these, and I'll stop and tell you where that's at. Next slide. So I think it's really good for us to kind of start with the story of this LCAP timeline. And so an LCAP is a 3-year strategic plan that's required to complete for the state. And we project out what we'll do over the next 3 to 4 years. And the baseline of this LCAP was COVID. So we have to remember that the baseline was 2020, 2021. And I'd like to show our House of Learning here, because I think you guys can all understand that our houses were severely impacted during COVID. Our families lost housing stability, we lost family members, and we had a lot of trauma happen in our community during this time. And so if we look at the timeline of baseline COVID closure and when we were supposed to start this LCAP and what has happened, in 2021-22, we have to remember that we were 50% online, 50% in person. And it's a year that we had to do a lot of restoration. And so in that year, we made sure we focused on social emotional learning. We focused on trauma-informed care, and we focused on our anti-bias training for what was going on in society at that time, and still today, and we're still focused on that. So that was our year of restoration. In the next year, 22-23, last year, we really started around rejuvenation, bringing in our behavior supports. We had a lot of students with maladaptive behaviors just from our circumstances that were happening and coming back and getting used to being in school full-time again. We had kindergartners who missed a full kindergarten year that were coming into first grade that didn't have those skills that they needed to develop in kindergarten. We had a lot we had to do last year when it just came to behavior supports. But we were really in a place where we were feeling a lot of rejuvenation, that kids were back on campus and we were getting learning back going. This year in 23-24, we are really focused on a rebound year. We're focused on academics. We're focused on universal design for learning. We're focused on implementing a multi-tiered system of support. And we're focused on deep learning. How do we give those kids the authentic learning experiences we talk about in our framework for the future? So this really goes to show the importance of that concept of Maslow before Bloom, right? We have to have our Maslow hierarchy of needs met in order for us to bloom in our academics. That's where we're at today. So this report's going to kind of shine the light on what's been going on. So our goal 1 that we rewrote last year was really to focus on the conditions of learning. And this is a state requirement that we focus on conditions of learning. And so if we look at the metrics on the next slide, that tells us that we're supposed to look at basic services, facilities are in good repair, our teachers are appropriately assigned and fully credentialed. With the staff that we have, not our vacancies, we have 100% compliance with our credentialed teachers. Students have access to standardized instructional materials, 100% there. And then implementation of Common Core state standards. We currently have an unknown status because that's a piece that we do this year is collecting that data on our implementation. Next slide. When we look at the next set of metrics under goal 1, we look at the number of students enrolled in our dual language immersion program, and you can see we have grown over time and it's still thriving in that program. Our percent of students earning the state seal of biliteracy, our desired outcome is 25%. Currently, we're at 18%. This is based on last year's data though. So we will have more students with the seal of biliteracy this year based on our projections. Our percent of students with disabilities in the least restrictive environment is supposed to be greater than 80% of the school day. This is a state requirement. We are working towards that. But according to last year's data, about 59% of our students with disability are included more than 80% of the time. We are working towards more inclusive practices, putting in more co-teaching and things like that so kids can be supported in a classroom with their regular peers. Graduation rates, we are looking at 85.6%. Again, this is last year's data. Our graduates from last year, and it was a 4-year cohort graduation rate. So that means when they start in 9th grade and stay all the way through till 12th grade, that's how we do that graduation rate. This does also include all of our alternative education sites. So 85.6%, our goal is to have 91.5% and above, of course, we would like 100%. This one, it's our English learner students concurrently enrolled in an English language development course and an English language arts course. Desired outcome is for 100% of our students to be in both. Our ratio right now is 68.3%. Sometimes parents of students as English learners will opt out their students of actually taking English learner classes if their student also has an IEP. So this could be a reason why some of our numbers are lower here. And then going to the next slide. This is, all of these are in progress because we're currently still spending our funds. So I'm just going to flip through these pages because they're all in progress as we spend down what we've budgeted for that. President Alvarado, do you want me to stop for questions through this or just wait till the end?
Till the end, I think.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, goal 2 then. Goal 2, state requirement, student engagement. We'll go to the next one. So we're looking at the percent of students who met or exceeded standards for the English Language Arts Assessment called the CASP. And that's the standard assessment that everybody takes across the state from grades 3 through 8. And then in one time in high school, they take it in grade 11. And so this is last year's data that we're looking at. And so last year, 42.86% of our students exceeded standards, met or exceeded standards in English language arts, 31.74 for math. And then there's also an additional indicator called the LPAC, and it's the assessment for our students who are English learners and gaining their proficiency towards English proficiency. So those are our results there. If we go to the next slide. Percent of English learners who made progress on an LP indicator. So this is the English Learner Progress Indicator. 46.8% of our students made growth there. Percent of EL students making progress towards English language proficiency, 46.8%. Our reclassification rate, this is in progress right now. So this isn't last year's data, this is current data. The way English learner reclassification rates work is that we look at their test scores from the year before, but then we also look at local measurements that we do throughout the year. So currently we're in that process of looking at our local measurements because they have to have 2 scores in order to reclassify. So we're in the process of reclassifying students right now. That's why you see 2.8% right now. We think we're on track to be in about 40% of our students reclassifying this year. We'll give you that update when we have that later on in the year. And that's same for our long-term English learners. Long-term English learners are considered students who have been learning the language for more than 5 years and have not been reclassified yet. So they're a separate designation for that. Next slide. This one is the percent of high school graduates who are prepared for college and career. There's several indicators on the state dashboard that tell us how many students were prepared based on various indicators. And this is last year's data. So our students last year who were prepared were 37.3%. Your decision last month, I think it was, to go A through G and things like that will help us in this meeting prepared, as well as our expansion of course offerings at the high school. Percentage of students who passed an AP exam is another indicator, 56%. Oh. Okay.
For the page that you're on right now?
Mm-hmm.
The page that we're on right now?
Yep.
Okay, so if I go down, it says the baseline for,
When we
That's-
started the LCAP, yeah, 2020,
go
21.
to metric 3.
Mhm.
Okay, so the baseline was,
45% of our students were prepared.
well, that's not the one I was looking at
Okay.
on the page. So let's look at the bottom one. Baseline was 8.3. I think I'm looking at the wrong slide. Okay, so go back one.
To
Oh,
slide
never mind.
14?
I'm
Or you wanna
I'm
go-
dabbling here.
You want to go
Never mind.
slide 16
So
where
my,
I have
my
lots
whole
of
thing
notes
is,
for you?
you have 8.3 was the first year.
Uh-huh.
We want 26%. I'm on the bottom line there.
Correct.
26% is our desired outcome.
It's our desired outcome.
And as of right now, mid-year, we're at 8.2%.
This is last year's students had 8.2% on a score of 4 or higher on at least 2 IB exams.
Okay, so when I look at this mid-year column, 8.2 going up 31.6, and then I go back to the base and it's lower, it means we actually lost.
Yeah,
within
so
each year.
go back. So on that line where it says 8.3,
Uh-huh.
we started at 8.3. Now go
Mhm.
to 23, 24, we're at 8.2. So we went down 0.1 percentage.
Right.
The other
Right.
one, the one
So
line
like
of,
the one at the top 45%, and then it went down to 37%. I
Correct.
just want to make
Yes.
sure I was
Yep.
looking at it.
reading it, yeah, read it that across. Yep. Each line is a different indicator that we're required to report on. So if we go to the next page, percent of students who graduated UC CSU A through G ready, our baseline was 78.8. 85.5% of our students graduated A through G ready. If you look at the next line, this one's a little bit tricky, and I'll explain why. This is percent of students completing 2 semesters of college coursework with a C- or better. This is dual enrollment. So dual enrollment with a college. So our baseline was 1.1, our goal was 13.6 or 13%. We're currently at 0.4%, and we have a reason for that. COVID, there was no dual enrollment available at the time. And coming back from COVID, our community colleges have been slower at having a partnership with dual enrollment again. So we've been working really hard this year to get that partnership going again. And then in the last one, percentage of students who completed at least one CTE pathway. So a CTE pathway is a 2-course path. So you actually have to take both courses to get credit to be a CTE pathway completer. So as we're building out our CTE programs and encouraging students to take CTE pathways, we'll see an increase in this number as well. Took a CT completer pathway. So they took 2 of those courses, and that has to do with being out and coming back in and catching up on credits and things like that. So this promotion that we're having of our pathways is really going to help with that. Yeah, expanding the periods, all those things are going to help. Next slide. Good. Okay. Percent of students who meet or exceed standards for science. So this is also given in 5th and 7th. And then one time in high school, you can kind of choose in high school which year you give the science assessment. So we're currently at 29.2%. Percent of students ready for college level English language arts coursework. So this means that students had to score at least a 4 on their SBAC test to be considered college level English language arts coursework. So they take that test in 11th grade. That test, based on how you score, if you score a 4, says you do not have to take any remedial courses when you get to college. By taking in 11th grade, you have the opportunity in 12th grade to take your class again in English. And if you score a C or better in that class, you get to waive that remedial course in college. So you have to score a 4, and so that's what that score is. So there we have quite a few students taking that 4th year English language arts class and getting that C or above and not having to take that remedial course. And then that's the same for math. And so it's scoring that 4 or higher, and then from there. Okay, so then here's all the expenditures that go with that. They're all still in progress. And so I'm just gonna have you just read the expenditures and know that they're in progress, and we'll give you a report when we do the budget report.
All right. Let's go ahead and do questions on on 1 and 2 for now. Just anyone have questions or comments on goals 1 and 2? Trustee Kelly?
Thanks. I think most people following along are noticing we're not near our desired outcome percentages on a lot of these. And yet I'm also hearing, like, even though that column that's almost last one on the right, second to last, that says it's our mid-year update it's being presented now, but a lot of times we're hearing it's data that's how old?
It would have been April last year that we started taking the SBAC assessment.
Okay, so I guess my question in general is, how many of these metrics are we going to meet when this data is finalized?
So where you say it's known, that's our status because we go in the rears. So that's our current status. It's known. It is this part of the LCAP. So when we
So-
do next year's LCAP, that's where you'll see our results for the 23-24 school year and how we did. We report basically a year later on how we did.
That clarifies a lot.
Yep.
And we're off on a lot.
We are.
So I think my next question is like, how are we gonna get to our desired outcomes?
We are doing a lot of work that I'll explain in Board Goal 3, or when I do your Board Goal 3 update, and then also in our workshop that we have with principals later on this month. We'll share a lot of that information on what we've been doing this year to increase proficiencies.
Thank you.
Any other trustees? Trustee Vargas?
Yeah, can you talk about spending? There are some where we have spent less than 10% of the allocated. So specifically, I'm looking at slide 10. Safe environments, so defining what safe environments means, but also like, what are we doing to make sure that we either spend those funds or make adjustments?
I'm going to look to my colleague, Amy. HVAC, yes. So a lot of this safe environments is HVAC systems that we're still purchasing, installing, those kind of things.
Got it. And then the second one is on slide 11, item 11, optimal learning environments, 2.5 million.
That has to do with furniture and things like that we're spending money on. So that's in that portion too.
Got it. So there is a plan to exhaust those funds by the end of the fiscal year.
Yes, our goal is to exhaust, yes, these funds.
Trustee Morocco?
I'm good.
Trustee Smithfield? All right. Goal 3, please.
Okay, goal 3. This is our rigorous learning opportunities, or with the state, it's called engagement. And so if we look at the first one, this is a current metric that we're working on. So we are reporting on current year in this one is our average daily attendance. Our baseline in 2021 was 95.9%. Our goal is 96.8%, and currently we're at 94% this year. Percent of K-8 students absent 10% of the school year or more. This again, this metric is last year's data that we're reporting on. So our desired outcome was to have less than 4.6% of our students chronically absent. We were still under COVID requirements last year for having students stay home. So we were, last year, our chronic absenteeism rate was 23.5%. We're currently at 15% for chronic absenteeism this year. So we have lowered it quite a bit. Our graduation rate, 82.5% was our baseline. And then last year's graduation rate was 85.9%. So again, reporting on last year's data. Suspensions, we wanted to be at 2% last year. We were at 4.8%. And again, that was some of the behaviors we were seeing coming back and things like that. High school dropout rate, that is an unknown metric at this time.
Pardon me. Student board members, it's 8 o'clock, and I know that you have lots of homework to do, so you are welcome to excuse yourself, or if you'd like to hear more, you can stay as well. Thank you. Please proceed. Thank you.
So next slide. This is our expulsion rate. This at point in time, we had 0 expulsions. As you are aware, the 8 suspended pending expulsions have been brought forward. So our number now is 8. So we actually have a number, but we'll be tracking that the rest of the year too. Enrollment numbers, you're very well of our enrollment numbers. Charter enrollment is current numbers that we have right now. We are right now administering the UCSD climate survey. So we'll have data there for later on in the year. And then we're currently working on FAFSA submission. You know, that was delayed this year. It has been extremely cumbersome The process this year has not been easy, and we are working diligently to help our students through that process. And then the rest of the slides are the budget slides that go along with this and how we're currently spending our money. And then if you want to go through to the last slide, Dr. Doyle. Yep, this is just a mid-year report. Some is past data, some is current data, and we'll provide you another report when we present to you our new LCAP in June, where we go back and give you finalized data and then our plan for the upcoming next 4 years.
So in 2 weeks, we have, I think it's the 28th. We have a special board meeting on the 28th where the school administrators will be meeting with us to discuss what is being done, implemented programs at their school sites to address some of these questions. But let's go ahead and start with Trustee Smithfield. Any more further discussion? And Trustee Vargas? Trustee Morocco? Trustee Kelly? Thank you so much, Dr. Olmsted.
You're welcome. Am I next still?
Oh,
I'm
you're
gonna
staying.
stay.
All right. Next on the agenda is 10C Board Goal Updates, Goal 3.
So this is our progress on implementing our LCAP plan this year in the data we hope to see based on what we've been working on this year. So in Board Goal 3, if we look at our continuous improvement, this one is on rigorous learning opportunities. And so if you recall, in December, we did Goal 1, Goal 2 in January, we're at Goal 3 now, and then our principals will give you a summary of how they have been implementing all 3 board goals at our workshop coming up later this month. So we know the board goals, so I'm going to go through those quick and remind you that we're focused on number 3, and then next slide. So really our focus on board goal 3, the first one was our dedication to professional learning around our multi-tiered system of support. And so as you recall, we attended a conference over the summer with a lot of teachers and administrators and counselors to really kind of get to understand what is a multi-tiered system of support, what are other districts doing, kind of validate the work we've been doing, get ideas to move our system forward. So really our focus this year with our principals is really making sure we're honing in on that whole child domain, making sure that inclusive academics, behavior, social emotional learning, and mental health are all equal in importance to each other, and that we're focusing on all. The other big piece we've been focusing on is what does it mean to have a continuum of support? What is tier 1? Best first teaching. All kids. What do all kids get? How do we universally design our lessons based on the students we have in front of us? What do kids get when they might not get it the first time, our supplemental supports? And then what are those intensified supports when some students need extra support? Once we kind of do all of that, hit it one more time, Dr. Doyle. This year we've implemented what's called the Fidelity Integrity Assessment, and all our sites have completed their first round of this year already. And what the FIA does is it's a self-assessment. They did it with leadership teams at their school sites, and they go through and they discuss how is our multi-tiered system of support working based on a series of probing questions that you look at and kind of rate yourself on, from a 0, which we don't call it a 0, we call it opportunity. We call that laying the foundation all the way to sustainable practices, which would give you a 4. Once our teams did these integrity assessments, they're presenting that data back to all staff, and they're talking about one area of growth they'd really like to hone in on based on what they saw in those assessments, and they're making their plans right now and talking to staff about what their next steps will be. The next one we've been working on is the concept of deep learning. And that's really giving our students authentic voice, authentic choice, and authentic ways to demonstrate their learning. And so we've been working with Michael Fullen and his team. He's a well-known researcher that talks about kind of what you need to move our kids into the work that we don't even know that might exist for them. And so there's 6 areas that you really hone in on, and it's critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, citizenship, communication, and character. So we've been really working, every school has brought a team to training. We've had 3 trainings so far this year. We have 1 more coming up in April with a showcase, and then moving into summer professional learning and continued learning in this area. Next slide. And then we have been really working on data analysis to improve instruction and increase literacy and numeracy proficiency in our district. And so the dashboard indicators are where we're currently at from last year's data. Orange in language arts, we want to be all the way over to blue, yellow in mathematics. And so that's based on the state assessment is where those targets are. So it's not even looking at local data or anything like that. At the beginning of the school year, we did a deep dive of data with our school principals, and they all set a goal to increase proficiency by 5% this year. And they are working very hard on that. We use a system called FastBridge to track ongoing progress monitoring data of our students. We track it 3 times a year. We sit with principals, we analyze data, we help them go back and how are they going to use that data with teams? How are they going to do small group instruction based on students who might need more learning? Things like that. And then Elevation is our progress monitoring system for our English language learners. And so we use ongoing formative data to make sure that we're making that progress for that 5% growth that we're looking for. Next one. Really working on college and career readiness, and I know this slide is messy, but I've given you the big one before. These are all the indicators the state says makes a student college and career ready. And so by working on increasing A through G, by working on expanding our course offerings at our schools in the day of our students, by working on dual language immersion academies, those kind of things, those all help us towards this college and career readiness indicator. So we've been doing a lot of work with our secondary sites on what does it mean to be prepared, and then talking to our elementary sites about the expectations our students have upon graduation and what we need to do in the early years to make sure they are set up successfully for that success in high school. Next slide. This is to let you know that our principals are really excited to share with you their data. We'll be doing this in a science fair style where they're all creating poster boards, and they each will be presenting to you kind of their poster board or poster session where you'll see all of their data displayed, and they're going to walk through their successes that they've been having towards the 3 board goals this year. That finalizes my presentation.
No,
Trustee Smithfield?
okay, if you go back a few pages, we skipped that whole section.
Which one?
Well, we kind of did, the information was just laid out.
Oh,
The
so,
one I
oh
was
yeah, so
showing you?
this you have is the full report that actually goes to the state. I did a presentation.
This one?
Yeah, so, yep, that goes with the last
So-
presentation.
Here's my comment with that.
Yeah.
It's in this section that we would have been able to get into the nitty gritty of what are you doing this? How are we doing this? You put in the LCAP to spend money on this, and we're at that part. So I would, not tonight, because I know we're on a time thing. I want to have that conversation. So I've asked for a meeting about GLAD
Mhm.
well over a month ago, hasn't happened. I asked to talk about math, implementing this A through G, what we need to do, hasn't happened. And now this happened, and I thought it'll give me a chance. So I need those things.
Sure.
I need those things to happen, please.
Sure. And just on the area of A through G math, we are currently setting up meetings with the department chairs to start having those discussions about the impact.
At, yeah, so,
Yeah.
but that's where I believe we are wrong.
With the math.
Because we're not going to change that problem with math unless we look at what's happening at our elementary schools, which I'm hearing this adopted math program is the worst.
Okay.
We all know there was controversy about that adoption. So there's a lot we need to fix
Yep.
to get there. We can't start.
Yeah.
So this section that we skipped over would have been a wonderful time to have those discussions on exactly, so it's great that we're looking at data, but what are we doing?
Mhm.
We've allotted this many millions for this. and we've spent this much on it and there's still no improvement. I want to have those conversations. Thank you.
Trustee Kelly is okay, thanks.
Thank you. You're good? Okay, thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is 10D, the Measure LL Facility Bond Micro Workshop.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, Madam President, Madam Vice President, members of the Board of Trustee. We have a brief overview. We don't have a great deal to report on this evening for this one. We're making slow and steady progress across the board on each of these projects. We'll move our way quickly through the slides. For our presentation on finance, we continue to be on track in all of our goals. No unexpected expenditures at this time. For project closeout procedures, I'm going to ask Grace Chan, our program manager, to step forward and walk us through this. These are important to know as we review them quickly, just as an overview of what you can expect to see as we start to close out some large projects. We're starting with RBV, Career Technical Education Facility. Thank you all for attending the ribbon cutting. We have various buildings closing out, including a project right across the street. I'm hoping you got parking closer than our parking lot at Vista Magnet Middle, but if you didn't, we do have a parking lot over there now, thanks to the hard work of the team. So Grace, if you don't mind walking us through these closeout procedures, and we'll move over to the various items on the closeout.
Thank you, Dr. Doyle. As Dr. Doyle has mentioned, there are items that you pretty much true up at the end of a project. And so these are the things that we're still working on behind the scenes. And once we finalize all the contingency usages, the allowance usages, and we get to find out what the actual amount of the project's going to be, then the architect, for example, the architectural fees, the lab of records, the inspectors, those are also going to be trued up according to what the contract is going to be. And so that being said, you'll see the next succeeding slides show how we're truing up everything. And the next one is the lab of record contract modification. And so that's further down on the consent. And then the next slide, I don't know if you, I think you could read it also. We'll go to the next one. And then also in terms of truing up the allowances that were not used, and then that way we can put everything into one bucket to clean it up and be able to reconcile the final project at the end. And here's the breakdown. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. It's a no cost.
We'll go ahead and we can go together here, Grace. For our Bobier Elementary School construction project, we want to thank Rosemary Smithfield for joining us for all of these meetings. And we're in the process of onboarding Trustee Morocco into all of this. It's incredibly complicated, so we go through an entire series of meetings to onboard people on this. And she's been working with us on that onboarding process. Part of having a discussion about if we will have a PLA, a project labor agreement on any items, is we do need to have a PLA coordinator. PLA coordinator is essentially a third-party arbitrator that keeps us all honest in these dealings. It's somebody that comes in and sort of mediates. It's not somebody that directly sides with us or the contractor or the project management team. They sort of sit in the middle as this third party that says, hey, I think you're probably not doing things according to what you have agreed to in the following ways, and helps us work through that. They also independently verify all metrics on the site to make sure we're meeting all goals. So this is something that we have coming up later on in the agenda. Grace, you have anything you'd like to add?
Pretty much it. It's required, and that's what we're doing, is making sure we're complying with our agreements.
Thank you very much. So our final slide this evening, just as an overview on board consent, you have the Rancho Buena Vista High School Career Technical Education. This is the contract modification as part of our closeout for the lab of record. For board actions items, we have the allowance adjustment. Then we have the Bobier Elementary School PLA coordinator and labor compliance item. That will allow for us to continue to proceed as we're going along to get that project ready, which, by the way, we are already holding meetings where we're inviting contractors in to meet with us and to promote this project, and the excitement's really building around it. So thank you very much, Dr. Doyle, and to our board presidents. We're here for any questions that the board may have at this time.
Trustee Vargas, start with you. Trustee Smithfield? Trustee Kelly? Trustee Morocco? All right, thank you so much, Dr. Loescher.
Thank you very much.
All right, next on the agenda is 10E, Long Range Facility Master Plan Status Update and Future Project Planning.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Doyle. The goal this evening is to start off with an overview of something that is typically, not always, but typically an ongoing conversation. This is a topic that over the course of months, we tend to go deep in. What we hope to be able to demonstrate are two particular items. First of all, the complexity of what Vista Unified School District has undertaken, which we should be extraordinarily proud of, which is this braided funding approach, which maximizes funding across the board in order to capitalize on facility improvements across the board. If we move to our second slide, there we are, already up. I'm using an iPad this evening. It's my first time using one in years, and it's going a little shaky, but I'm working through it. When we look at sort of the long-range facility master plan and our discussions around that, first of all, this is a seminal document for the district, something that allows for us to look clearly out into the future. We have been looking on the first 4 bullet points as our primary focus. The purpose of kicking off this discussion is to look at the bottom 2, our short and long-term planning for upgrades, modernization, and new construction. This is going to happen in 2 parts this evening. This is an overview. The second will be an action item to talk about what we're proposing for the upcoming months and into the future. The other part is looking at future facility bond measures. If the long-range facility master plan did nothing else than to demonstrate clearly and concisely to our community one topic, it's that we are not at fault as a school district for the situation we're in, and that we don't have the funds to correct it. We have almost $1.3 billion in identified needs as of July 2023. It has been 7 months since having that conversation. The amount is now $1.35 billion, and it will continue to go up. That's the situation we find ourselves in. So it is our obligation to engage in a conversation about what we can do about it. And what we are planning to do this evening is I'm joined this evening by Janet Muller, who is our legal counsel on matters regarding bonds. She is here to answer any general questions you may have. We're here to introduce you to the framework of what is called our project list language, which, despite its topic, is not a list of projects. It's a framework that we present to the community that allows for the board to have maximum flexibility, and it has changed. It has changed since our previous measure LL in terms of what we generally present. So just to give us a brief overview, that successful methodology that we talked about is called the braided methodology. It's not looking at measure LL alone or other fundings. It's looking at different fundings as revenue streams across the board. The way I envision funding, I grew up playing with trains. I've used it like a giant train yard. There's different switches and tracks in different ways. And our goal is to maximize all of our resources to provide these improvements for our classroom. So we give examples of funding, including Fund 40 E-rate developer fees, all of these funds coming together. And if we give you just an overview of that sampling on slide number 4, we look at these things in terms of general funds, deferred maintenance, developers fees. These are not all inclusive of all funds, but some of the funds that we're looking at in major pots. And when we look at the abbreviations that we'll be looking at throughout the months ahead as we get to planning, we also have the type of funding, whether they're unrestricted funds or restricted funds, or whether these are percentages of unrestricted funds that are calculated. It's incredibly complicated, and we're fortunate to have a wonderfully gifted financial team to walk us through those things. We also listed a typical use of those funds, and as of 23, 24, how much funds we have. Now, taking a page from some of our financial frames, we're going to pivot this around now on slide 5 and look at it a little differently. If we take all those funds and realign them into the terms of the large buckets around the types of maintenance and types of projects we have regular routine maintenance, major repairs, deferred maintenance, and capital improvement. We now pivot those funds around to different ways you can utilize them. This is not the only way, but this is an effective way that we have currently been utilizing those funds over the last several years. So what have we been doing about that? Now, if we take a retroactive look at what has been done in 2022 prior to my arrival, you went through a process where it was a wonderful workshop where I had identified 3 top priorities for us to address. And we have listed the priorities here on slide 6. Fire, health, and safety are a #1 priority across the board, and you can see some of the sample types of projects listed. So what happens to that information when a board provides it to the superintendent and staff? Well, we act on it. And if we look at slide 7, on slide 7, we see examples of where that has come to fruition in actions being taken by the school district even today. For example, the modernization of fire alarms, project status as of 2024, Vista Adulthood, Vista Adult Transitions, Breeze Hill, RBB High School. We have 29 active projects in planning around this topic. If I look at the underground utilities, as of this moment, Grapevine 300 wing is next currently up. We have 15 projects in planning around underground utilities and upgrading those items. For example, 3 PA intercoms. We just had a recent meeting where we were just looking around. In fact, earlier today, Ms. Baracco was with us out at Vista High School. The new PA system is right there on the walls, fully functional and working. They're being upgraded by IT across the board. And in that case, we have over $1.7 million in projects happening right now to upgrade those facilities. If we look then as an overview as how that looks, not just in terms of braided funding, but in terms of LL projects. LL projects, we're starting to see some of our largest projects to date close out. RBV CTE, the ribbon cutting just occurred. Vista Magnet Middle School across the way. I hope that we are able to, we will be engaging soon in ribbon cutting at that facility. I'm hoping you're enjoying the wonderful work that has been done there. We've held meetings recently in Building S. Trustee Smithfield joined us for the CBOC meeting in the new Flex Suite just the other evening, where we even got to see the wall come down, which you can write on in between the rooms. It was unplanned, but it did work, and we were thrilled for the fact that the wall was planned to come down. The usage of the wall was not planned, to clarify that statement. And we have several projects in process, including Beaubier, which is the single largest project that we'll undertake in this, and perhaps one of the most impactful in the history of the district in terms of rebuilding in the center of our city the model elementary school for the future. If we look at funds on slide 9 for Measure LL, the remaining funds that will begin this process of talking about with LL as we look at all funding, is we really look at a remaining balance at this time, and I'm qualifying that statement of saying at this time, because there are a number of unknowns that I'll cover here shortly. The remaining balance of Measure L at this time is estimated to be $43.1 million. I want to thank Ms. Shackelford for that estimate. It's not an easy thing to estimate out. Why not? Well, you're just seeing some of the closeouts of some projects. When we close things out, we're still going back and forth on a variety of topics. If you recall, talking about Vista Magnet Middle, we have disagreements that we're settling on various fundings for items. If you recall, We have disagreements on some items as we build, but we don't stop building. We continue to build. That's the way we continue to progress things for the district and for our students, right? So we don't know the total fund balance exactly because we're talking about projects that cost, in some cases, tens of millions of dollars. The closeout balance can shift in that process. So our current estimate at this time is 43.1 million. It does not take into account the unknowns yet ahead. That includes the unknowns such as what will the GMP, that guaranteed maximum price, finally be for Beaubier Elementary School? We have a philosophy that drew me to this district and I think will draw many people to this district, which is we do not value engineer. We build it right for our students over the long term. So what are some of the things that have come up as we go through this? Just to start to put these things on our radar, this is going to happen in two parts. In this section of this presentation, we're going to give you a longer term sort of outlook as to things that are on our radar that weren't part of that priority list before, but have come to our attention now. For example, we have to do transition planning. We have multiple school sites that are in transition because we had school consolidation. So we have to consider swing sites, how we might deal with that. Middle school conversations about preparing possibly middle schools for what they need to look at if we are to engage in that process. Outdoor learning playgrounds and athletic facilities, we have gymnasiums that no longer meet CIF standards that we need to address the floors or we cannot continue to use those facilities. We have areas and shade structures. If you look at the long-range facility master plan, a universal thing that continues to come up is that we do not have shade for our children on the playground, which is particularly of interest when we talk about our students that are not able to move around to get to shade, our students with disabilities and our younger students in particular. We have looked at playground and track conditions in new ways as well. Finally, as we look out there, our HVAC systems and our refrigeration systems continue to be of interest, including Rancho Buena Vista High School's weight room, the art room facilities, rooftop replacement units, and we're going to later talk about what seems to be a large investment in HVAC, which is a $10 million project, which will expunge those funds out that was brought up in a previous board goal on those items, but $10 million only represents a fraction of what is needed in order to get all of the facilities and our HVAC systems to be where we want them to be. When we look, though, to the future, this does lead us to a conversation that we're engaged in. And that conversation is, shall we pursue a future bond measure? Now, that is not a conversation to be decided at this meeting. But there are planning and preparations that we are required to engage in order to get the endorsement of various agencies that support these efforts, namely the San Diego Taxpayers Association and other people as they look through this. The first step that we've already shared with the board is we have, as a district, given our pre-application notice to the San Diego County Taxpayers Association. That's a letter with an overview that we are investigating this topic. The second item to this is something called the bond project list. Now, it's not a specific list, and we're going to quickly just run over the framework of this for you, and our legal counsel is here to answer any specific questions you might have so we can gain feedback from you on this topic. But it's called the project list, but it's a requirement to establish the general scope of the bond. The actual projects to be selected are selected by the Board of Trustees. That typically happens when you know more about information after we get a bond. And you can always, in most bond language, change that up over time. A school list is typically a listing of all of the schools in the district. You also list a listing of other properties you might want to touch in that. So that could be other facilities or programs or properties. Categories are overarching statements that are intended to be for voters and the public to understand what we're engaged in. These are not language around maintenance. These are not terms like capital improvement facility upgrades. They're not HVAC or infrastructure or sewer. These are broader statements. Descriptions are supposed to be practical examples of a category for public understanding, not an all-inclusive list of everything we intend to do, but an example of what we would like to do as an opening thing for the public to understand. And then other items within this project listing include an opening as sort of a preamble, some general definitions, but also other items that are requested of us to make statements around our policies, dispositions, or regulatory items as they exist today. For example, it is requested by the San Diego Taxpayers Association if we have a board policy for or against PLS. It is the position of the San Diego Taxpayers Association that school districts should not have a policy for or against anything, but should do what's right for a project and for the taxpayers based upon reviewing an item. So they're simply asking, do you have a policy, yes or no? We do not currently have a policy for or against, so we're very much in aligned with what the San Diego Taxpayers Association is looking for. They say make a determination when you look at a project, which is what this board has done. When we look at the examples that we have suggested, previously, on previous measures, we've had a longer listing of categories. In reviewing the listing of categories, which on a previous bond had been listed A through F, we had abbreviated that as a suggestion to the board that 4 broad categories exist in this case. Projects to create 21st century learning environments to support science, technology, engineering, and math curriculum and career technical education training opportunities. Category B, projects to improve student and campus safety and security. Category C, projects to modernize and upgrade utility infrastructure, technology, improve building functions and systems, and install energy efficient systems. And category D, projects to complete basic facility upgrades and to meet current academic and safety standards. Where some of the previous categories had used some specific language about the removal of portable classrooms, those fall under the category now of examples that we provide of the things we might do within that. With that, we look over, well, with that on slide 12, we wanted to open it up for any questions that you might have of our legal counsel about that project list and the categories that have been recommended, and open it up to any board suggestions that we should be taking into consideration as we look at developing what we call our draft project list. The draft project list is what we must submit to the San Diego County Taxpayers Association for their consideration of an endorsement in the future. And they have made a request based upon the number of applications they predict to have us submit that application as soon as we can practically have it happen, with their finalized deadline being in late March. So with that, Dr. Rowe. Yep. Yes.
All right, questions, trustee Smithfield?
Okay, so I don't think I have any legal questions, but, so when we talk about this, Dr. Loescher, Grace, because we spent a lot of hours in our meetings, our workshops, and we talked about what this board talked ad nauseum sometimes as to how we had to prioritize projects. So we came up with a list that we thought, like, first was fire life safety. Bottom line, we need to make sure all of our schools are safe with that, blah, 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 blah. Is this taken from that list? These words that you put in this book for a possible future measure categories, like, you guys, what I would kind of like to look at for our list is what we thought, okay. So we all know we've had people coming to us since the last bond telling us things were on the bond. Everything was misunderstood. We never said we were going to touch every school, blah, 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 right? So I'm thinking going forward, we spent a lot of time in detail putting all those notes up and everything. that's what we should focus on our bond language, like the district is committed to spend, I mean, this money on, and then the list of priorities that we set, not sites, but just fire, life, safety, blah, 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 whatever we came up with. I don't even remember now.
Yeah, and I think that might be, like, it's a multi-step process. The way I'm understanding it is those language and those categories, it's a requirement of the Taxpayers Association and not necessarily what we would put, but our legal counsel is here and she could clarify perhaps. I'm understanding it that way. Am I incorrect?
Well, I'd invite our legal counsel, Jan Miller, to come up, but there is a second attachment to this where we provide not just the categories. In the examples, there is a listing of examples in each category. So, for example, when we talk about to improve student safety in campus security, it states in there fire, life, safety items including acquire and install classroom instruction, intrusion alarms, video surveillance cameras, safety locks, classroom items, upgrade emergency communication and technology, upgrade aging classroom facilities for current fire and systemic maintenance. So there's a listing of.
Okay, so just so you know where I'm coming from, you guys, I have PTSD from when we did the last one, and I really don't want that to happen again going forward with this bond. And I want to make sure those things that we talked about are part of this language, that somebody else just didn't come along and say, oh, let's just say this.
All right. So that would be language if and when the board approves to put a bond on the ballot that we would. We're talking about the application that is needed to put forth for the San Diego Taxpayers Association and their requirements for them to give us an endorsement. Am I correct, Dr. Loescher? Okay, let Janet. Not just the language, not yet.
Okay, all right. Thank you for having me. So there's a few different issues. So the San Diego County Taxpayers Association wants an early look at what we propose to bring to voters. So when we talk about the bond project list, that's a requirement of a general obligation bond measure. And that will be, and I think what you have as part of your agenda packet is that component of what we ultimately would bring to voters. That is also a piece of what the Taxpayers Association wants to know. They want to know how well prepared, how thoughtful this project list is, and they want to know a lot of more information from the district than what we would actually put in our ballot measure. So we have tonight just this sort of one little component, which is really to me the core of a ballot measure, which tells voters this is what we expect to spend the money on. We do want it to align with all the work you've done on the long-range facility master plan for sure. But we also know that the long-range facility master plan identifies a lot more projects than we know we could possibly do with a general obligation bond measure. So we want to make sure that what we say to voters for a potential bond is consistent with that plan, but we also recognize that in some ways it's an extraction of that plan. So we spent actually some time, one of the reasons why we wanted to have multiple conversations with the board is trying to figure out the best language to use and the best alignment to have so that people could connect the dots between all the detailed work that was done in the long-range facility master plan and then how we would present components, the most important components of that, to the public as far as the actual bond measure. The bond measure will look a lot bigger, but again, that project list is kind of the central component, and it's also a big piece of what the Taxpayers Association wants to know from the district during this phase of the work as well. I don't know if that helped clarify, but it is a bit of a task for everybody to make sure that we've got the right projects in front of voters, that they reflect the board's present intentions and all of the work of that master plan.
Did that answer your question, Trustee Smithfield?
Yeah, I kind of feel that's what I was saying, but maybe you heard something different. And I understand the long-range facility thing is something else. I understand that. But going forward with the bond, they were the things this board identified as being important to work on. So Yes, we need to use that language because the board put it together, not somebody coming in and saying, okay, you need to write this for the Taxpayers Association.
Yeah.
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 No, no, we just wanted you to know.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Trustee Kelly?
I did have a question about page 2 of the bond project list as an example. There's some very specific language that's included. This is in the, yeah. The projects that are highlighted in category A, for example, talk about health sciences, engineering, technology, high quality instruction in math, science, technology, science instruction. My question is, what about dual language immersion? What about English? What about our social sciences? How come there's no mention of those specific types of learning environments?
So typically, when you're talking about communicating out some of these things, when you talk about more specialized programs, you talk about them in a grouping, and science, career, technical education, those programs tend to have specialized facilities around them. Whereas other programs such as English language arts, social science programs, ELI programs tend to be covered in a broader topic of general classroom upgrades that are in a subsequent category. We can certainly, though, Trustee Kelly, add those items to another category. But in terms of trying to frame the conversation around facility improvements, those are typically grouped together so the voters understand the scope of those particular items.
Okay, I appreciate that, but I think, to echo what Trustee Smithfield said, it's really important for us to be clear everywhere for our taxpayers in the community, what we intend to do and what our vision is. We aren't a district that only focuses on science and tech, so our bond should not specifically focus on that. I think if there's general classroom environments that are going to support other programs, we should state that.
Yeah, I have a question. Nowhere in any of these presentation materials or the ones that are on the agenda have I seen a mention of workforce housing. Is that something that we are not allowed to use the bond for, or, because I know we discussed that on this board about workforce housing. So I have a question about that. How does that?
Sure. Workforce housing can occur in a variety of ways, and ultimately it's up to the board to decide whether you wish to include that in a bond or not. But it doesn't have to be exclusively the work of a bond. There are different mechanisms for making that housing. So that's ultimately the decision of the board for inclusion.
Okay, is that something that if we put that in, how would do you have any idea how the California Taxpayers Association would view that?
I can confer with the San Diego Taxpayers Association, ask for their feedback on that, but they are an independent organization, so I would not want to speak on their behalf.
Okay, thank you. But I just want to clarify, but we are allowed to include workforce housing in a bond. If we go out and request a bond, we can, it's not like legally prohibited that, you can't use a bond, you can't use a bond measure on workforce housing. It is allowable.
So to make sure I understood the question is it legally permissible to use
Yes.
bond measures for that?
Yes,
It
you
is
said it
legally
earlier.
permissible to do that.
Okay,
That's correct.
thank you.
Yeah, a couple remarks and questions. One is on the San Diego County Taxpayers Association, they published that transparency report. We got a B+.
Mhm.
Do you know what the findings were and what were we missing in order to get that A+?
Yeah, so we consistently have been moving up in our ratings, and we continue to do so. Our score actually moved up. They debated whether to give us an A minus or not, just to be clear, but
So was it website translation, like what?
no, it was not website or
Minutes?
translation. It had to do with a particular type of audit that they would prefer to see us do. It's not a requirement within the law to conduct such an audit, but it is their preference as a taxpayers association that we conduct a subsidiary audit of our bond program.
Got it. And then following up on the attachment that's on this agenda item, Dr. O, can you pull it up? I noticed that we have Beaumont's address listed here along with Rancho Minerva, but we also know that Vita is going to be moving in. And so any specific reason why we didn't include the Vita address instead of the actual name?
Yeah. Yeah, so when we look at the school sites listed, it's listed as a school site. So it's tied to school sites, not necessarily address. However, the time that this bond would be addressed, both Rancho Minerva and Beaumont would no longer be school sites, they'd be decommissioned. So we're required to list those as properties under the other facilities and programs rather than a school site. Nothing in here would forbid us from doing anything to Vita at one location or another based upon this language.
But I don't see an olive address. Is that something that's missing or that we should add? I just don't want to, if we need to do something at that property in the future, don't want to make sure we exclude that.
We should be all covered within this, but we'll double check on that for the trustee and report back to you. When we have the Vista Innovation Center, I believe, listed in here as well. So that is inclusive of the property.
Perfect. And with the list that's presented, does that include some of the polling data that was brought back 3 months ago? We did poll. Yeah, we did polling a couple months ago. And so is that language included as part of this list?
Yes, an example of that would be category A around the need for career technical education and science classrooms.
Got it. And then my last point of feedback is if we can include housing, obviously I think we're going to do polling again. And if it's something that seems viable, definitely recommend exploring it.
All right, Dr. Loescher, so the feedback that you're asking so that we can be, go ahead, Trustee Kelly.
Tiny thing to add for my colleagues who pointed out about workforce housing, or I guess it's a question. Would that, it doesn't appear that that item fits into the existing 4 categories. Would that necessitate a 5th category, or would we reword one of the categories? Or like, I guess it's an item for your to-do list. It's just, that note to include some accommodations for that.
Absolutely. That would be something we'd look into as a next step.
All right, so Dr. Loescher, in terms of a timeline, so we can get our ducks in a row, for lack of a better term, and to meet all the requirements needed, is to get approved this. No, it's a draft.
It's simply a draft, and we wanted feedback this evening, which we've received, and we're able to bring it back with additional items. And again, when it goes to the San Diego Taxpayers Association, I defer to legal counsel on this. My understanding, it's still a draft at that juncture, but you haven't passed anything. It's a draft to share with them about what we're looking at for the purposes of their early review.
Absolutely. So the deadline to call a bond measure is August 9th. So we would be looking probably at a meeting in July to bring a full package to call a bond measure back to you. It's just that the Taxpayers Association has this very early deadline to kind of see what we're thinking. So we're trying to key all of our activities off of that very early timeline, but we wouldn't anticipate you actually taking final action to approve this package and bring it to the registrar of voters until I think mid-July, if I'm remembering the timeline correctly.
I do. I just saw one section, this is where we got into some challenges last time. So page 5, the district will promote fair and competition for all construction projects. The district does not currently have a policy that favors or disfavors the use of project labor agreement in construction projects. For every project, the district will determine whether the use of PLA is in the best interest. If a PLA will be used, the district will provide advance notice to the public. There was some, when we voted on the PLA, the original intent, there was some discussion about whether we committed ourselves to not on this matter. And so this language can be confusing. If that's what suffices for the taxpayers, I understand that, but it does create confusion among voters.
That is, and we can certainly take a look at that and see if there's a way to paraphrase that in another way to provide clarity. The language that's being recommended there is the language that's asked for by the San Diego Taxpayers Association to specifically state that there is not a policy for or against PLS.
Great, and that first sentence would suffice.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
That is all, I believe. Thank you, Dr. Loescher. All right, next on the agenda is item 11, the
I make a motion that we approve the
what- no,
consent calendar with the exception of item 14A, which will be brought back at a future meeting.
No, I have wanted to pull a couple items.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want to get the motion and then I'll pull them? Well, there's nobody seconded it. Okay, all right. So then I need to pull item 12C and 16A.
All right, it was moved by trustee Kelly to approve the agenda. It was moved by trustee Kelly to approve the agenda minus 14 day, it was 14A. And it was seconded by trustee Vargas. And then during discussion, trustee Morocco would like to ask a friendly amendment to the original motion by trustee Kelly to pull which ones?
16A and 12C.
16A and 12C. Would you be amenable to those changes? All right. So, any further discussion on approving the agenda minus 14A, minus 12C, and minus 16A? See, no further discussion. All in favor of approving the consent calendar, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries 5-0. So 12C. Approve the classified personnel register.
Yeah, apparently my son is still on there. I guess he's probationary. So I need to abstain from this vote.
All right. Can I make can I get a motion to approve 12C? So moved. Moved by trustee Smithfield, seconded by trustee Vargas. All in favor of, any further discussion? All in favor of approving 12C, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So just to clarify, we have 4 ayes, 0 noes, and 1 abstention by trustee Morocco. All right, the motion carries. All right, next on the agenda is 16A, ratify and approve contracts.
Okay, I have I have one question and a couple questions actually. Okay, so page 1, on the item 100, I guess it says E. Bailey LLP, it says increase to open a purchase order as needed for additional auditing. Does that mean that we have them on board to do just regular auditing, but we're just increasing the services, or?
Yes, they're doing additional work on all of the federal compliance that we're having to do, and some of those new requirements. When they originally bid the contract 3 years ago, it was before COVID, and all of those new regulations that have come out since. So it was, because we're in year 3 of 3,
Mhm.
it wasn't enough.
Okay,
with
thank you
additional
for the
hours.
clarification on that. And I have one more, let me find it. Here it is, it's on page 2. It's under general fund restricted for strategic kids. They increased to before and after school staffing support for the AM PM program at elementary sites. I'm just, this might be a Rachel question, actually, because I'm wondering if it's possible if we could maybe work with some of our classified employees that might be doing other jobs to increase their hours. So I don't know if it's possible to do that or not.
I think that we're talking about a contract to approve currently. So are you proposing a conversation for the future about
No,
having
I was
classified-
thinking that we might need to, I'm wondering if we should pull that off this pending the answer to the question. Okay.
We have, I think, currently 350 students still waiting on a waiting list to be enrolled in our after-school program. We've been using Strategic Kids to help us with that staffing. And so this approval of the increase to that contract would allow immediately 350 students to join our AMPM program.
I understand that, but what my question is that couldn't we take, let's say like, as an example, some IAs that would like to increase their hours and allow them to, maybe we could, if we work with the unions or whatever, allow them to do this job. Is that something that we could look at, or
We
is?
currently have an MOU right now where we increased all hours to 5 hours.
Mhm.
Some of those were 3 and 4 hour positions, and we increased the leads to 8 hours, and that's permanent. But we do have an extensive MOU that's in place through the rest of the year, provides us an opportunity to contract out, and we've increased hours, and that's what we're recruiting for. So they're all 5-hour positions, and there is some time in there. It's a little bit of downtime. So they have that planned, but anything over that would have to be longer conversations because we don't know what they would do during that time. So we do have an MOU right now for increasing hours, contracting services, and an incentive.
So would that be also allowing them to switch, like, if they're, let's say, as I said, like, let's say they're an IA,
Mhm.
and then they could actually work in an AM/PM
Anybody
facility?
can do that as a substitute. So you have a permanent position as an instructional assistant during the day. You can be a substitute in the afternoon to any open position. We have people that are doing that. We've done that since COVID. So, but they all have the option of doing that. We
Okay.
actually have a posting on EdJoin for substitute positions for that situation.
I see. Okay, and so then this is because nobody's taking, okay, very good, thank you. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, more kids, yes. Got it. Okay, thank you. Yeah, wow. Right. All right, thank you. And I move that we approve item 16A.
Moved by trustee Morocco, seconded by trustee Kelly. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving 16A, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next on the agenda is 19A, request for future, no, whoa, I just jumped a whole section as you were, as you were. It's 17A. Where did I? 17A, ratify and approve purchase orders.
I make a motion that we approve 17A.
Moved by trustee Kelly, seconded by trustee Vargas. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving 17A, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries 4-0 with 1 abstention, with trustee Morocco abstaining. Next is 17B, the Maintenance and Ground Summer Project Planning and 18-month look ahead.
There's a reason why Mr. Kirby was the classified manager of the year. He stays for all board meetings now. Thank you very much, Dr. Doyle, and we want to thank the Board of Trustees for hearing us on this item and for your consideration of the recommendations of staff. I want to thank Mr. Kevin Kirby for joining us this evening. He's our head of maintenance, and he'll be commenting on various sections and is here to answer any specific questions you might have. And Mr. Arias, who is here as our head of grounds and is responsible for all grounds improvements, also will be heading the athletic facility upgrades that you'll be seeing in this presentation. He's also the individual responsible for our team effort. We're all wearing matching ties this evening, thanks to Mr. Arias, to make sure that we show a uniform effort. All right. First of all, just framing our discussion is how we like to put things forward. And in framing this, we really have, again, these overarching categories that we continue to use because we consistently have presented to the board in this fashion of facility program improvements, preventative maintenance, and fire life safety items. Projects currently not listed in this presentation. The Measure LL listing is separate. The intercoms are underway with IT, and our water heater program, which we have spoken about at length, something that, if you believe this or not, the superintendent and I are as passionate about water heaters as we are about squirrels in our fields. It's something we talk about regularly as being somehow trivial yet incredibly important to the maintenance of school sites. Project types that we'll be going through and discussing are listed on this slide as well and has been presented before. When we look to slide 3 of this presentation, this is just a quick overview that there are different categories and implementation timelines that we present. Immediate projects are on an ongoing basis that we bring back to the board. Of course, we have midterm and long-term projects. That was the focus of the previous presentation in the information discussion section. And what we're focused on here are our near terms, the next 4 to 6 months, and some of those things. And the factors that impact these are listed with each. And our factors for the 4 to 6 month interim include contracting capacity and site schedules. Now, the unknowns that accompany this and have led to certain projects being what we call carryover projects, which we will present to you next, are issues regarding labor, supply chain, and unforeseen conditions. Sometimes we get into a project, we think we have it right, we get into it, we don't. We don't just conduct the project. We stop and we look if we can regroup. And there are some examples of that what we're going to present this evening. So carryover projects for summer 2024. What do we mean by this? I mean that we have projects from previous years going back even several years that are carried forward here. Now, what are these things? They involve design and discovery, contracting, or project planning. Something happened during that process. And during that process, we had to make strategic decisions, and we reported back to the board on some of those. So, for example, approved in 2022 that a carryover project, Vista High School, we have a couple specific ones. We have, first of all, Project A, Building N, and the CNS, Child Nutrition Services, and the music building are something that have been previously approved that we'll be bringing forward this summer. We also have the baseball backstops and foul ball protection for previous years that was previously approved. For Mission Meadows Elementary School, we previously had approved the asphalt on the playgrounds. This is very different than other sites. The asphalt on that playground, we actually spoke about this briefly at a previous meeting, has deteriorated beyond a point of simple repairs. We have to conduct a full remediation removal. This is also a site where we're going to be experimenting with some new methodology, and we're going to be conducting some active action research projects on those playground sites to see if there's a way we can reduce our playground ambient temperatures. Why is that important? Little kids, like my kids, used to get little burns all the time because they would sit down on the pavement and do things. We're looking at if there's other ways, other than just shade, that we can remediate that. Improved in 2023 is something that was Foothill Oak, and we had a project for gutter replacement, but we discovered in the process of that gutter replacement that the gutters had led to other situations that require additional remediation that is an additional $1 million over the projected cost. So we are looking to carry that project forward with an additional $1 million cost attached onto it. Also approved in 2023, moving forward onto the next slide, slide 5, including the roofing of 400 wing of RBV, Monte Vista roofing. You're going to see a number of roofing projects. And why so many roofing projects? Because it had rained the previous year. Therefore, roofing projects skyrocketed in cost. And it was advised that we could do better jobs and have a higher quality and come into project cost scope if we had put off some of those items. So we did all eminent needs, and now we're looking at these as the ones that had previously been approved that we wish to carry forward into this year. In the previous presentation, I spoke about the fire alarm systems being replaced. You will see a listing of additional fire alarm systems we're carrying forward here. And then finally, Mission Meadows asphalt and concrete also on that listing. But as we look forward and we look at slide 6, we're really looking at things from a funding perspective, but also looking at the braided methodology approach. So looking just at Fund 40 projects, we have a roofing estimate of about $1.8 million in roofing, painting of about $100,000, asphalt about $200,000, ground and landscape of about $570,000 just in Fund 40. For special projects and what we mark as other funding, these are some of the larger scale projects, okay? This is Vista High School's track and field development, track and field. Now, these are now proposed to come out of developer fees. Now, developer fees, we have funds available there, and we do have $5.5 million available. This is a permissible use. Ms. Shackelford has double, tripled, and quadrupled checked that, as she always does for all items. So we are available to use those funds. Now, this is a previously approved project, but we brought it back because it's an entirely different scope of work. So what happened? We originally talked about if we would replace just that AstroTurf field, just that artificial turf. A couple of things happened. First, DSA requirements on those fields changed. Now they are applicable to all American with Disability Acts, procedures, and protocols. So these fields now have to be ADA accessible, and we've redone them so many times, the track actually has lips on them of over an inch, and people can't get up and over them. Second is we did an assessment of what would happen if we just replaced the turf, and the answer to that was we would end up in the same field condition within just a short span of time, because the problems that have persisted on this field and the one at RBV, which is slated for a future project, those conditions are underneath. It has to do with drainage and storm sewers and other items underneath. So these fields now need to be fully removed, excavated, new storm systems put into them, not the ones you might have noticed. If you ever have been out, for example, at Vista High School or after the recent rainstorms, it is, I believe, the south side of the field completely floods to a depth of 3 inches. That's because there's a single drainage along that route. We need drainage all the way around in order to take that sort of stormwater. And what we've learned over the last few years, that stormwater is becoming pretty normal as part of our way of doing things. So that project is slightly different than listed before. We also have in this what pertains back to Trustee Vargas's question that went back to Dr. Olmsted. What about those monies for safe and secure classrooms? $10 million for HVAC replacement at 8 school sites this summer. Ground landscaping is slated for an additional $100,000 in outdoor classrooms. And then deferred maintenance funds, where we're proposing that we have issues happening for general facility improvements. The technical term I think Mr. Kirby would use is soffit repair. Thank you. I got that right. Soffit repairs on those items for water remediations and other items. And that is, again, just general facilities repairs. We have our 2 experts here that are our district employees that are here to answer any questions. But on the next slide, as we open up for questions, we do have a school site listing. These are the school sites for the Fund 40 projects that are being slated for this summer.
Questions. Let's see, who did we leave off with last time? All right, I think I started with Trustee Smithfield on the last thing I did. Okay, great. Trustee Kelly, questions about this list, summer projects, or any of the presentation? Trustee Morocco? Trustee Vargas?
Sure. Not in the last week, well, actually, I stand corrected. In last week's Friday letter to the board, I believe we reported 131 work order roof leaks that occurred during the most recent rains. That seems like an astronomical figure. That figure is way down from years previous. We have a number of roofing projects here that are being pushed forward as carryover and additional items. Roofing continues to be something that we invest in as a way for remediation repairs. I want to include, while this is a listing and a specific listing for summer projects, there is one project not listed here because we do not have an accurate assessment of the cost. That would be for Grapevine Sewer, correct? And stormwater repairs, and that would be also a site. There also is likely to be other sites that we have looked at that may have additional considerations, and we're assessing those at this time based upon our last series of rains and also the 7 atmospheric rivers from the year before. But we do believe that this particular list positions us to deal and handle many of our rain mediation issues efficiently. One reason that Foothill Oak is being brought back is it needed to expand in scope in order to deal with all of those issues. Yes, so specifically for Foothill Oak, the additional $1 million is not just in terms of doing gutters, as much as we believe those are important to pulling the water away. It's about classroom remediation. Why is Foothill Oak so important to get in and is on this listing, and why we're doing that? Clearly, we have reboundaried as part of our process. We have additional students going to Foothill Oak. We need these classrooms to be taken care of this summer, so that way we're ahead of that curve. So we're looking at all of those as elements.
All right, I have a question. And if it was addressed, I apologize. I stepped out to the restroom. With Madison already having a big student population, and now Madison will be absorbing some students from Rancho Minerva. What are we doing to optimize and to improve the function and the furniture and the infrastructure at Madison to make sure that we accommodate a couple hundred students, perhaps 150?
Thank you very much, Trustee Alvarado. There's a couple of considerations for our middle schools as we look into this consolidation process. The first has to do with capacity, and the second has to do with how we're going to be organizing the sites. So for our schools, we have done some investments on those areas, including shade improvements previously to Madison, but we would be returning to the board as we assess more some of where everything's going to move and what we would be needing to do to those. It's not inclusive in this list.
So if my fellow trustees would be amenable, I would request kind of for you guys to do an evaluation, because they're already at capacity. It's over 1,000 students, Dr. Doyle, correct? So I would request that you really, in partnership with the staff or with the principal over there, really look at what we can do to go above and beyond, because now we're talking about like the biggest middle school in Vista Unified. It'll be at 1,200 almost. And so we really need to look at the infrastructure, furniture, with more desks in a class, I think, or maybe not. Maybe there are empty classrooms and we won't need more kids in a class, but I really don't know. Actually, just look at it if my fellow trustees would be in consensus with that. And sooner rather than later, so this can be part of the summer projects. And we can prioritize some of those funding sources for that. Any other further questions?
I haven't.
Oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Smithfield, I apologize. Go ahead.
So not going forward with what we need. This is like a two-part thing. Is this something that we've already implemented? So I'm thinking about Vista Magnet Middle School, because we've spent a lot of money on things at that school. And the vision that just came into my mind was the one roof outside that is just, has a whole forest growing out of the roof. Is that going to be something that's looked at, or are we already looking at it? It's already.
Why don't we have Kevin
Because
come up
then
and
we have
report
to
to you?
keep up with it, so.
That's actually a project that is in development with, we have an architect involved, Alpha Studios is handling that, and GAFCON is going to be putting together that project. So.
Good answer.
Every now and then.
And then, Martha was just talking about Madison, I don't remember.
Any
Oh,
further?
I know.
Okay, go
really
ahead.
quick. You brought up Madison, and I'm thinking of Roosevelt too, and I'm hoping we'll do that at both sites because I do know the last time I visited Roosevelt, they were worried that they did not have enough space for the amount of students that they were told was coming to their school. So yeah, we don't want to have that undone.
Thank you.
Are we okay with moving on, fellow trustees? All right, thank you so much, Dr. Loescher. Are you up for the next one too? Next on the agenda is oh my Lord. What is up with me this morning? Oh gosh, it's a long day. This afternoon, this evening, tomorrow. All right, we need to vote to accept the list. You have more. Proceed.
Well, we can table the rest of what's on this presentation, if it's the pleasure of the board. We know we have a timetable to leave the room this evening. So everything else was simply a look ahead, to future projects. So that can be incorporated into a future presentation if it would please the board.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the project listing as presented with the addition of close look at Madison and Roosevelt school sites in light of the fact they'll be absorbing more students in August of this year.
Moved by trustee Kelly and seconded by trustee Morocco to accept the summer project list with the additions of Roosevelt Middle School and Madison Middle School. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the summer project list, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Dr. Loescher.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is 17C, authorize the superintendent to award bids contracts during the period from March 2024 through August 2024.
So this is an item that we do each year. It is a very limited scope. This would essentially authorize the superintendent to delegate approval of what we call the summer sprint maintenance projects. We just reviewed a longer list of projects in the previous presentation. These have a very specific scope. These are the general maintenance efforts that we do each summer. So the roofing, flooring, asphalting. This authorization, this delegation of approval of contracts would not include those larger projects like the sports fields and the Foothill Oak gutter project. These are the ones that are time sensitive because essentially we have to get contractors on the ground the day after school closes. And so we'll go through the series of efforts to go out to do the job walks, the bidding, and the awarding. And so the challenge is each year is with only one board meeting each month, that we'll lose that time because once the contract is approved or awarded, then there's a period of time where the contractor has to then gear up, get their bonds, get all their paperwork, insurance, and all ready to go. So this flexibility of being able to award these as soon as we complete that bid process would enable these contractors to start essentially the day after school starts or ends. And so waiting till the next board meeting, it could delay where they wouldn't be able to start potentially until July, and then they would only be able to do a smaller scope.
Hello? I make a motion to approve item 17C.
Ooh, I have a question. Okay, I second.
Okay, so in the past, we do this every year, but we only do it for the summer months. We never started in March, I believe. So we always said, because I remember asking this and it explained to me that once people leave for the summer, then they have to give that to the superintendent. And then the second thing that made my radars go up was we always attached not to exceed to this.
Yes. So, typically, historically, I think that we used to do it as late as March. We're bringing it in the February meeting because, to have a longer runway to do the bids in the event that a bid doesn't come in the right, or comes in too high and we have to go out and rebid. And so if there's any projects that come in higher than the ROM, the estimate, then we would either go out to bid or scale down the scope of it. And so essentially the sum of these estimates would be the $3.2 million. We wouldn't go over that. And then we would bring those contracts back as a ratification, each one of them at the next board meeting. Did I answer? Oh. So last year, I think we did almost $6 million of summer projects. Previously, when we only had the routine restricted dollars, they were only able, we lost our maintenance folks, to do about $1 million. With the COP funding, you'll see that we're able to do, as an example, the roofing, the painting, the asphalt. And so the time allowed to, the runway to do the bidding, and if we're starting the bid process in February and March, enables us to get out to market sooner before those contractors fully booked. So when we were waiting to do it in March and April, when those contractors are more, I'll say more employed, they have a tendency to have a higher price on when those bids. And so early to market helps having a lower bid response, but they still wouldn't start the work until June. Yeah, so some bids might be done in March, some might still be in April. Oh.
Yeah. And I'm just wondering why it needs to be March if it's for summer when everybody's gone?
But award the bids earlier and then start the work the day after.
But if we're awarding it before school's out, isn't that, can't we just go through the normal channels?
It's just, yeah, it's timing. If the meetings don't align, then it would be a ratification. But if it aligns with the meeting schedules, then it would be an approval at that meeting instead of a ratification.
Right. I'm kind of with trustee Smithfield on, it doesn't seem right. It seems like we, as an oversight body, we really should not, I have a real, I mean, I understand that, summertime makes sense because it's like, okay, well, we might have to get some things approved and, kind of, but I'm sort of a little bit, to not have things specified, especially when we're talking about millions of dollars. It's one thing if we're talking about, like a petty cash type fund, but it's another thing when we're talking about millions of dollars. I'm not sure. I might feel better if, like trustee Smithfield suggested, if we put sort of a cap on it of, did you say like $32 million or something? Like that?
$3.2 million is the current estimate for their summer sprint projects. You can, so example, 1.8 million on roofing, that's the estimate that they have for the sites that they want to do the roofing for this summer. The other alternative is we can, bring it to the next board meeting and not do a ratification. We can go either way. This was more of if there's a timing issue.
Mhm.
And it's time sensitive, by the time you go through, each of the bid processes. And like in event, you know, worst case, if we didn't get the bid responses and we had to go out again, and then we're butting up into
Yes.
April 1st, and then the board is April 18th, and the contractor wouldn't be able to start on the day after school, that would be an example
Oh.
of why.
I'm just wondering if Trustee Kelly would be willing to amend her motion to put a cap of $3.2 million on that?
Yes, that is what's, in item 17C already.
I don't see that.
Page
Fiscal
35
impact.
of the board book.
I don't have the board book. I'm on.
Yeah,
Oh, I
so-
see it. I see it. Okay. All right. Okay, I see it. No, I see it now. Okay.
All in favor of approving 17C, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries 5-0. 17D, approve the resolution 24-14 to convey an easement to the city of Vista for utility purposes.
So this is the third step in the process. In January, the board adopted a resolution with the intention to enter into declaring its intention to convey an easement on the Vista Magnet property that was moving that 6-foot piece of property over due to a sewer repair. Then step 2 was the public hearing that we conducted earlier in this meeting, and step 3 is then to approve the second resolution approving going into that easement with the city.
I move that we approve item 17D.
So moved. Moved by trustee Morocco, seconded by trustee Kelly. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving 17D, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Next is 17E, approve the resolution 24-15 authorizing the use of college buys, CSU Consortium Agreement 00004410 awarded to WAXI to purchase custodial materials and supplies.
So this is another opportunity, purchasing, was able to research and find a piggyback agreement through the college district where they had found better pricing on waxing products. So it would just enable us to save approximately 8%. These are cleaning supplies, toilet paper, paper towels, soap, things like
I
that.
move that we approve item 17E.
Moved by trustee Morocco, seconded by trustee Kelly. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving 17E, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Next is 17F, approve no-cost contract modification to GMP for the new CTE building at Rancho Buena Vista High School.
So Dr. Loescher presented this previously in the Measure LL Micro Workshop. Essentially, this is one of our closeout items where we go through all of the completed work where there's remaining unused allowances, and we sweep them out of those specific scopes of work into a general owner's contingency. So it's essentially freeing up $226,000 from work completed and not needed down to a general owner's contingency bucket that would be owned by the district.
I move that we approve item 17F.
Moved by trustee Morocco, seconded by trustee Kelly. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving 17F, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Next is 17G, approve a contract with GAFCON for PLA coordinator and labor compliance services on the full campus update project at Bobier Elementary School.
I move that we approve item 17G.
Moved by trustee Morocco, seconded by trustee Kelly. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor? I'm sorry, did you say something? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of approving 17G, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. 17H is next, vote for the CSBA Delegate Assembly. You have it. Oh, okay. That's convenient. All right. It was moved by trustee Vargas, seconded by who? Have I gotten a second on it?
Am I allowed to second?
Yes.
Okay.
Moved by trustee Vargas, seconded by trustee Kelly. Any further discussion on 17H? Seeing none, we'll take the vote. All in favor of approving 17H, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. 18 is next, but there's no more public speakers. So 19A, request for further board agenda items or other business. So, no? Okay, go ahead, Dr. Doyle. March or April. So in March, we have a regular board meeting on the 14th. And then Heroes of Vista on the 22nd. And when is spring break for Vista Unified? So I will be out of town from the 21st of March to the 28th of March. That is my spring break for my employer. So I'm not available then, but anyone have other restrictions or suggestions? Or 20th.
Me too. It's the DLI steering committee. Yeah. Yes, I'm good.
All right. So the 20th special board meeting for workforce housing. 5? Okay. No, so they can attend, right? All right, next on the agenda is 19B, board member reports or comments. Anyone? No? All right, 19C, board member reflections on board meetings. It's cold in here. That's my reflection. You got a draft in here. And, so in the future, I mean, I know that this facility is not going to be, used continuously because of time constraints of 10:30. We did it tonight for the families of the Golden Apple recipients, but there's a draft in here. So if we ever come back, let's ask for some heat, please. It's the draft right here. And then, okay, so then in that case, we're going to go to 19D. We are going to adjourn the meeting. Wow, at 9:42. Wow.